From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here on this Wednesday. It is the 28th day in the month of June 2017. As we get set to go with a busy day today after missing the last two, you wake up this morning with some incredible news that Phil Jackson is no longer a part of the Knicks organization. You had the big trade for Chris Paul today. That and the Yankees continue their losing ways, which I think will go on a little bit longer than what a lot of Yankee fans would hope to hear. And the Mets lose yet another pitcher, just to add to their entire list now, as Ron Darling goes on the rant that every Met fan over the course of the last couple months has been going on about this team. But of course, we'll begin today with Phil Jackson, and we'll begin today with the New York Knicks. As if you are a Knicks fan, this, folks, is a godsend if you are a Knicks fan. It does not get much better than the feeling today knowing that Phil Jackson is no longer the president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks. I woke up this morning and checked weather and social media, as I do every morning. And the first thing I see on my Facebook feed is Phil Jackson removed. And the first words that I spoke today were, there is a God. There is a God out there somewhere, because only a gracious God who has seen a team suffer enough would do a complete 180 from the middle of the season, where you're thinking, where if you're James Dolan, you're saying we are committed to Phil Jackson, we are committed to his contract, and that's it, to a couple months later going, you know what, no, it's time to go. This comes on the heels of essentially alienating their star player, putting up for trade the future of the team in a trade that we said last week you have no guarantee that he's going to get it right. And this time that Phil Jackson has spent in New York will probably be some of the most forgettable times in New York Knicks history. Because if you think about what Phil Jackson was brought in to do compared to what he has done, he was brought in to lure big name free agents. If you want to call Joakim Noah for a max contract, if you want to call Courtney Lee, if you want to call Derrick Rose for a max contract, key free agents, then yeah, he did his job. You would be on the very, very short list of people that you would call them key big name free agency moves. He was brought in to help this team win a championship, to connect the final pieces of the puzzle to help this team win a championship. They have had the worst year in franchise history under his watch. He was brought in to instill this triangle offense, an offense that none of the players care for. He was brought in to be the president of basketball operations, and in many cases during practices you heard from a lot of different people, he was trying to play head coach. He was trying to get there, he was getting down there, trying to teach the triangle offense, and essentially saying, you know what, forget about what the head coach is saying, whether that had been Hornacek or Woodson or whoever. Forget him. I know what I'm doing. Listen to me. Now you get, just in this last year, you signed Derrick Rose over the hill to a max contract for 1 year, at least 1 year. You have repeatedly tried to force Carmelo Anthony out. You have alienated him completely. You've tried to trade off Kristaps Porzingis because he did not attend the exit meeting and because he is not returning your phone calls, because he is unhappy with the direction you are turning this franchise into. You signed Joakim Noah to a 3 or 4 year max contract. Joakim Noah isn't worth half of the money that he's being given. Dreadful contract. You had the incident with, and these next couple are not his fault, but you have the incident with Derrick Rose this year, just completely just leaving before a game in Chicago. You had the Oakley situation, which again, that's not on Phil Jackson, that is on James Dolan. And then you had everything that has gone on so far in this offseason, and from trade deadline to beyond, on Phil Jackson. This guy has done nothing but bring this team down. He has been actively trying to get himself fired. I believe that wholeheartedly. He has been actively trying to get himself fired from the start. He did not want this job. I am a full believer that every man has his price, and that if given the right price, a man would do anything. There is no reason. Phil Jackson did not want to be in the NBA anymore, but he has gotten this position. And what has he done with it? He has turned the Knicks from a disrespected franchise to the embarrassment of the National Basketball Association. This team is not just dysfunctional. This team is dysfunctional on steroids. Now you point the fingers, and I pointed a finger this year too at Carmelo Anthony, and you start to realize, you know what? Phil Jackson was the center of every problem that the Knicks have had over these last couple of years. From stupid trades to bad signings, trading Robin Lopez for, what was it, 2 second-round picks, and then the next week Timofey Mozgov goes for 2 firsts. It's like, you're kidding me, right? You traded Robin Lopez to Chicago for 2 second-round picks, and a week later, Timofey Mozgov goes for 2 firsts. Really? And you're proud of yourself for that trade. You know, we know what we're doing. No, you obviously don't. You don't know what you're doing. And with the signings that the Knicks made this offseason, with the exception of Courtney Lee, because honestly the Courtney Lee contract isn't all that bad, signing Derrick Rose to max money for a year, and reports are now that they are interested in signing him again for next season. Why you would do that when, one, you just drafted a point guard, and two, Jeff Teague is interested in the team. Why you would sign Derrick Rose again is mental. You really don't have a center, because really, do you really honestly consider Joakim Noah a center? Do you honestly consider Joakim Noah a starter? Well, when he's getting max money for the next 2 or 3 years, yeah, he kind of has to be your starter. You cannot get rid of that contract. You can't. Not for the fact of you shouldn't. You should get rid of that contract. No one will take it. No one will take that contract. That is an abomination of a contract. Good for Joakim Noah. He got max money for what, 3 or 4 years, but really? When you put really? You're paying Carmelo Anthony $24 million next season, and you got to deal with Joakim Noah's contract? Really? Oh, not to mention Kristaps Porzingis gets his big boy contract in a couple years? Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun to deal with. I understand Carmelo's contract comes off the books this year. After this year, we don't know. He has the player option. for this upcoming season. Reports are he is going to opt in and play for the Knicks next season. You had Chris Paul, who opted into the Clippers contract, which leads you to a couple of different sides to that Chris Paul situation. For those of you who didn't see today, Chris Paul goes to the Rockets. So now you have a backcourt for the Houston Rockets that consists of Chris Paul and James Harden. And listen, if I'm a Clippers fan, which I do, which before I did, I will admit that. I did prefer the Clippers over the Lakers. If you're the Lakers, don't be. If you're the Clippers, don't get too distraught over this trade, honestly. Because if I were to tell you, you get Chris Paul for another year, or Chris Paul walks, you get Chris Paul for another year, you win 50 games for the ninth time for the 10th time in franchise history, the sixth time in 7 years with Chris Paul at the point, and you lose in round one, and then after that, Lord knows what happens. Or do you, or would you accept trading Chris Paul now, getting something for Chris Paul? The Rockets sent Sam Decker, Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams, DeAndre Liggins, Darren Hilliard, Montzell Harrell, and Kyle Wiltjer, a top three protected 2018 first round pick and $661,000 to the Clippers in exchange for Chris Paul. So you get half of the Rockets roster plus a first round pick plus cash for Chris Paul to have one bad year, and then you have what, $70 million to spend on free agency next offseason? Which one would you take? Would you take one more first round playoff exit and another possible 50-win season, and then after that, probably nothing? Or half of the Rockets roster, cash, a first round pick, one bad season next year, and then you have $70 million against the cap? I'm taking the latter. This trade is fine by me, and you do have a couple of nice pieces in here. You have Patrick Beverly, you have Lou Williams. I don't know who the I don't know who the other people are. You get the protected first round pick and $500,000 cash. All of that for one bad season, and then you have money hand over fist to spend on whoever you want in a free agent market that is going to include LeBron James. LeBron James will be a free agent next year, period. That's all there is to it. And we'll go through the whole Miami, we'll go through the whole I'm taking my towels at South Beach. We'll go through all that again. All I have to say to the Clippers fan is believe in Jerry West. That guy has done more. He has won championship. He has done more for California basketball, not just the Lakers, not just the Warriors. He has done more for California basketball than any guy I can think of. The guy won championships for the Lakers. He has brought championships to the Lakers as an executive. He has created this dynasty in Golden State, or he has led it for the last couple years. And now he's with the Clippers. Jerry West knows how to build a team. Clippers, don't fret. You're going to have one bad year. And then again, you're giving Jerry West $70 million to play with. That's not a bad trade-off to lose Chris Paul. To lose Chris Paul, that is not a bad trade-off. And to say, oh well, they forced him to accept the option so he can do the trade. Fine. Fine by me. Clippers fan, do not worry. You will be fine after next year. Knicks fan, It's going to take a while for the Knicks to bounce back from this, to undo everything that Phil Jackson did. It's going to take a while. Now we can truly see what kind of coach Jeff Hornacek is. We will see what Carmelo Anthony can do with a team and a front office that will embrace him now. We will see what Kristaps Porzingis can do now that they're not going to try to push the triangle offense. Now that they're going to let Porzingis do more of what he wants to do on the floor. Draft picks, free agency, trading players. We can actually see now what the Knicks can do next season. Don't expect it to be a 50-win season. If you go from 31 wins like they had this year to between 35 and 40, that's still a good year. It's better than where you would have been this past season. If Phil Jackson was in charge for next season, you would not have gotten 35, 40 wins. He was in extortion mode the entire way this season. It was not going to change for next season. Phil Jackson was going to try to destroy that team beyond recognition. A couple things happen with this move. The pressure is taken off of Carmelo Anthony. Kristaps Porzingis, all those trade rumors are going to get shut down. Do not expect Kristaps Porzingis to go anywhere now. Dolan said, you know what? If he's going to leave, if Jackson stays, you know what? Jackson, step aside. And the fact that Phil Jackson fell asleep at a practice recently kind of tells you everything you need to know. The guy doesn't care to be where he is. The guy doesn't care to be in the position that he's in. If you're not doing anything to help, don't do anything. And Phil Jackson was not doing anything to help. So if you're a Knicks fan, you get the news you have wanted to hear for the last couple years. And that is that Phil Jackson is no longer a New York Knick. Rejoice. Rejoice. Now you get to baseball, which isn't much better. The fact that Tim Tebow, and this is the only thing I'll say about it, the fact that Tim Tebow was batting .222 in low single-A Columbus and is now in high single-A Port St. Lucie is an absolute joke. He will never play a game in the major leagues. If he does, it will be one game in September. He will get a pinch hit appearance and you will never see him again. Tim Tebow will not play a game in the major leagues, period. He will not. And everyone's going crazy that he got a hit in Port St. Lucie in his first high AAA game. So you get the Mets tonight. The Mets are now a game and a half behind the Marlins, who they play tonight, 11.5 out of the lead, and fall back to 8 games under 500. The Mets are done, beyond done. This is, you throw the hat in, you throw the towel in on the season. End of June, this team's 8 games under 500, shows absolutely no signs of improving, is getting hurt. It has more players on the DL than it has on the roster. The Mets are done. The Mets are done this season, period. You lose Gesellman last night, which prompts a mini rant from Ron Darling, who said everything that the Met fan has been saying all season long. Get the trainers, either fire the trainers or get the trainers together with old baseball trainers that know how to train baseball players, not weightlifters, not guys with six packs. Conditioned baseball players is exactly what he said, and it is beyond true. Hamstring injuries, you've had more hamstring injuries this year than you've had in the last couple years. You've had more injuries to pitchers than you've had over the last couple years. You've had more shoulder injuries, arm injuries over the course of the last 3 or 4 years than you had had prior to that. And all you need to know, the only indictment, the what major indictment that for the training staff that you need is that before Jose Reyes left to go to Toronto, or go to Miami and then go to Toronto, he would have a minimum 2 hamstring injuries a season. This year, when everyone else is pulling hamstrings, he has not had one. He's been to 2 other organizations and he has not had one. That is because that it has to be because he's doing something different in his training regimen that is helping him stretch his hamstring out more to where it's not going to get hurt. These trainers have to go. And I understand the trainers can't help an injury from Lagares falling and diving on his thumb in the outfield trying to make a catch. That's not something that they can control. But Noah Syndergaard, a pitcher putting on 18 pounds of muscle over the offseason, that is something they can control. Muscle doesn't make you throw harder. It constricts your arm. It tightens your arm. You're more prone to injury that way. You don't want a buff pitcher. A buff pitcher gets hurt. Syndergaard knows this now. When you see, if you're a trainer and you see Syndergaard come in and he's building muscle, building muscle, building muscle, hitting the weights, hitting this, hitting that, you tell him, what are you doing? Get on a mound, get in a batting cage, start throwing pitches to a screen. Do something with your arm that doesn't involve a weight. Keep your arm loose. Don't tighten it up by bulking it up. This is the thing that Met fans have been saying all season long. Trainers need to go. And finally, somebody with the Mets finally said it. Trainers, goodbye. They have to go now. The Mets have had more injuries this year than they had last year. They had more injuries last year than they had the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. This was supposed to be a year where the Mets battled with Washington closely for a chance at the NL Eastern title. And because of injuries, it has not worked out that way. Tonight, it'll be Steven Matz going up against Jeff Locke, or Lockie. Both of them lefties, so again, do not... oh, actually, the lineups are out. Yeah, Duda's not in the lineup, so go figure. Conforto's not in the lineup because Cespedes is back with the team. Good job. Steven Matz tonight versus Jeff Lockie. Matz 1-1 with a 360. Lockie 0-3 with a 570. So if there's a chance that the Mets are going to win a game in this series, it's going to be tonight against a bad pitcher in Jeff Lockie. For the Mets tonight, Curtis Granderson is Asdrubal Cabrera, Yoenis Cespedes, Jay Bruce, Wilmer Flores, Travis d'Arnaud, Jose Reyes, TJ Rivera, and Steven Matz. Another thing with the Mets, if you're Asdrubal Cabrera, shut up. Just shut up, okay? Wilmer Flores is hitting too good to take him out of the lineup. Lucas Duda is going to play against righties. Flores is at first base tonight. You want to get TJ Rivera some reps in because he might be your second baseman next year. Oh, God. Reyes is back at shortstop. His natural position has been playing well. You've had how many defensive miscues this year? You've made how many stupid mistakes in the field at shortstop? You have not hit... You're batting, what, 263? Fine, that's not too bad. 6 homers, 20 RBIs. You're not producing. Asdrubal Cabrera, you have no room to talk. You're going to get traded anyway. So demanding a trade it falls on deaf ears, really. And a lot of Met fans are going to say, you know what, just go. Myself included. For Miami tonight, it's D. Gordon, Giancarlo Stanton, Christian Yelich. Marcell Ozuna, Martin Prado, Justin Bour, AJ Ellis, JT Riddle, and Jeff Locke. Is it Riddle or Rydell? It's Riddle. And Jeff Locke. For the Yankees tonight, you're going up in that the final game of the series against Chicago White Sox. I believe it's the final game of the series against the White Sox. No, this game 3 of the 4 games set against the White Sox. Pardon me. For the Yankees, you almost blew the first game of the series on Monday night. Last night, you fell 4-0. You've also, with your loss last night and the Boston win, the Yankees have now fallen below the Red Sox by a game in the standings. And I honestly think that this is going to be a continuing trend. The Yankees have not hit a rough patch this year. It's a team of young players that, with the injuries, is only getting younger and less experienced. Chris Carter goes down to the minor leagues again, which about time. Starlin Castro's on the DL. Ellsbury has been on the DL. One of your top producers in Aaron Hicks is now on the disabled list. You have a lot of issues with the Yankees have a lot of issues. A lot of issues right now with the bullpen and injuries the most predominant. One they can help, the other one they kind of can't. This is the first time the Yankees have been hit by a wave of injuries, and it's the first time they've really been down. They've lost 11 of their last 14. The youth of the Yankees could be catching up. You've lost CC Sabathia now for a while. Pineda's falling off. You have Tanaka, who's been inconsistent this year. Tanaka's going tonight, by the way. This, I think, is a continuing downward trend for the Yankees. I do not think they see first place again this year. Could they win tonight? I believe they can. But the lineup looks very different. Gardner, Judge batting number 2, Sanchez, Gregorius, Headley, Romine, Miguel Andujar is the DH since Matt Holliday's on the DL now. Tyler Wade, Ronald Torreyes ahead of Masahiro Tanaka, who is 5-7 with a 5.74. They go up against Carlos Rondon, a lefty, making his season debut after suffering with left bicep bursitis. They will go up against the lineup of Carlos Sanchez, Melky Cabrera, Jose Abreu, Azival Garcia, Todd Frazier, Matt Davidson, Tim Anderson, Omar Narvaez, and Adam Engel. Tonight at Guaranteed Rate Field, in Chicago. I didn't watch any of the game. I didn't watch either one of the games over the last couple nights for the Yankees, and I've said it several times. As a Met fan, it is still hard to admit, but the Yankees have been a lot more entertaining this year. A lot of the games in this 11 losing 11 of 14 run have been one-loss games, and those were the games that the Yankees were winning the last couple months. So things have really changed for the Yankees from that regard. But one thing I noticed about that ballpark in Chicago, it is so dark. The outfield especially is so dark, and I don't know whether it's the lighting from Yes or Pix 11 or whatever station the Yankees are on. That ballpark just looks so dark in the deep outfield. It's a place where, oh, I lost it in the lights is not an excuse by any stretch of the imagination. So you have the Mets taking on the Marlins, about to throw first pitch any minute now. Yankees and White Sox, they'll start in an hour. Over the course of the weekend, New York City FC defeating the Red Bulls 2-0. The Red Bulls will take on the Philadelphia Union tonight at 8 o'clock. And tomorrow, New York City FC will take on Minnesota United FC as the MLS season continues. Let me see if I can't pull up the table. The Red Bulls are currently 7th right now in the table, from what from the very little I can see. 7 wins, 2 draws, 8 losses. Luis Robles, their keeper, has just signed a new long-term contract with the Red Bulls. So you have that. So the Red Bulls right now are now out of a playoff spot by 1 point behind Atlanta United, and the New York City FC is actually 5 points behind Toronto for first in the Eastern Conference. So there you have that. I love how the Red Bulls sign Robles to a long-term contract when the team's goal differential is -6. -6, and you have New York City FC with their goal differential at +11. Goalkeeper for the U.S. For the New York Red Bulls, Luis Robles, signs a long-term contract. They have not released the terms of the contract. So there you go. That's all you know, and that's all you need to know. Apparently, as far as the Red Bulls are concerned. So that is it for us today. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I will see you all tomorrow.